Do you dare to listen to something no one wants to admit? What you fear most, that crushing no, the gaze that ignores you, the door that won't open, is not the villain of your story. It's actually the beginning of your liberation. Because rejection doesn't destroy you, it reveals you. It doesn't show what others think of you, but what you haven't yet healed within yourself. Every time you feel excluded, unloved, or displaced, it's not the world speaking. It's your shadow screaming. Carl Jung explained it precisely. What hurts us about others is a faithful reflection of what we deny in ourselves. And rejection, however painful, is a brutal mirror you can't avoid. It shows the exact wound you keep dodging. It forces you to look where you never wanted to look. It's no coincidence. It arrives when you need it most. It's a signal, a call, an internal tremor whispering, "Wake up." But of course, no one wants to wake up to an emotional slap. We want sweet acceptance, constant approval, belonging. And that's where everything breaks down. Because while you seek validation from others, you unknowingly abandon yourself. Every time you beg for love out of need, you project scarcity, and scarcity repels. Have you noticed? The more you chase someone, the more they evade you. The harder you try to please, the more invisible you become. It's not malice, it's human instinct. What reeks of desperation generates rejection. So where is the power? In ceasing to need. In discovering that your worth doesn't increase when you're applauded, nor diminish when you're ignored. Emotional self-sufficiency isn't coldness, it's clarity. It's understanding you weren't born to beg for acceptance, but to recognize your own light. And that day, the day you stop pleading for love and start choosing yourself unconditionally, is the day everything changes. What you fear most isn't someone saying no. It's that no confirming something you've silently suspected. That deep fear doesn't come from outside, it comes from years of hiding parts of yourself you've never dared to face. And when someone rejects you, they inadvertently force you to confront those dark zones. That's why it hurts so much. It touches the exact wound still open. Rejection isn't about the other person. It's about what it awakens in you. It reminds you that you're still seeking externally what can only be resolved internally. Every time you place your worth in others' hands, you weaken yourself. And that's where the cycle repeats. But here's what no one tells you. True attraction isn't born from pleasing. It's born from being. It doesn't arise when you strive to fit in, but when you walk firmly even if misunderstood. People aren't drawn to those who seek approval, but to those who've already chosen themselves, because that's rare, magnetic, real. And here's where everything shifts. When you stop begging for affection, when you stop molding yourself to be accepted, you start projecting something few understand but everyone feels. It's not arrogance, it's integrity, not coldness, it's presence. Emotional detachment isn't indifference, it's unconditional self-love. And guess what happens when you stop chasing? You become chaste, because you stop emitting need and start radiating solidity. In a world starved for validation, that solidity becomes irresistible. So the next time someone closes a door on you, thank them. It's not rejection, it's liberation. No one wants to admit it, but most keep seeking acceptance like oxygen. They dress in security, but tremble inside when they don't receive the yes they expected. That tremor isn't weakness, it's a signal. A sign that parts of you are still anchored to external validation, like an invisible chain limiting every step. But here's the paradox. The more you need acceptance, the less authentic you become. And the less authentic you are, the harder it is to truly connect. People don't want an edited version of you. They want your truth, even if it's uncomfortable. That's the force behind real attraction, the courage to show yourself unadorned. Some people spend lifetimes without knowing themselves, repeating hollow phrases, following scripts others wrote. With each passing day, they lose a bit of their inner glow, not because they're unworthy, but because they stopped listening to themselves. The pursuit of approval slowly kills your connection to self. And when you finally dare to pause and look inward, the true journey begins. The journey back to yourself, a place where you don't need likes or praise because you found something deeper, your voice. The one that doesn't tremble when unapplauded, that doesn't change when unchosen. Facing inner silence is one of life's most challenging tasks. It doesn't scream, but it weighs. It doesn't accuse, but it unsettles. In that void, you realize many wounds weren't caused by others. They were self-inflicted. From abandoning yourself again and again to fit in, to please, to be accepted. Most rejection pain doesn't come from the no, someone said. It comes from the internal echo already waiting for a trigger. Each rejection is a reflection, a clear sign of where you haven't fully embraced yourself, where you still believe you need approval to be worthy of love. The more you try to convince the world you deserve to be chosen, the further you stray from yourself. You start acting, speaking, dressing according to others' expectations. Unknowingly, you become a diluted version of yourself, an acceptable but empty figure, visible yet disconnected. It's right there that you have the most powerful opportunity to face the character you created to survive and ask with honesty, who am I when I don't need to please anyone? This question has no immediate answer. It requires courage, patience, and deep unlearning. But it's also the door to freedom that doesn't depend on approval. Think of the people who've impacted you most, those who don't need attention to be memorable. They all share one thing: they don't flee rejection. They've faced it, integrated it, understood that being rejected for being authentic hurts less than being accepted for wearing a mask. From that raw authenticity arises real magnetism. True strength isn't in avoiding pain, but in not letting it define you. It's walking firmly, knowing the no may come, but no longer has the power to break you. Because when it does, you'll remember everything you need is already within. What's most intimidating isn't the world's darkness, it's your own. The part you avoid, silence, hide under layers of busyness and forced smiles. But the shadow doesn't vanish when ignored. It grows silently, waiting for the moment you dare to face it. Many prefer living anesthetized, repeating soulless routines to avoid confronting what hurts. Ironically, the more you dodge it, the more it seeps into every relationship, every wrong choice, every yes you say when you meant no. Life becomes a cycle where rejection acts as an uncomfortable yet necessary alarm. It's in that discomfort your rebirth begins. There comes a moment, perhaps after a breakup, betrayal, or loss, when you can no longer deny yourself. That's where your authenticity is born. You no longer have energy to pretend, act, or beg for love. You start shedding, not out of rebellion, but exhaustion from self-deception. At this point, masks fall naturally. The fake smile no longer fits. The pursuit of approval becomes annoying noise. You finally hear your own voice, the one silenced for years, the one telling you you need no validation but your own. That you're not here to fit in, but to exist with purpose. And here's the magic. When you stop chasing love, it starts finding you. Not because you're now perfect, but because you've become real. Authenticity isn't about being flawless. It's about being unfakeable. Genuine attraction arises from coherence between thought, feeling, and action. And today, that's revolutionary. So instead of fearing rejection, start seeing it as the perfect filter. It shows who truly resonates with you and who's only interested in a superficial version of you. Every no pushes you closer to the yes that truly matters, the one you give yourself, unconditional, undisguised. When you choose loyalty to yourself over others' acceptance, no rejection can steal your peace. There's a nearly imperceptible moment when you stop chasing what isn't yours, not because you've lost desire, but because you've gained clarity. You notice the more you try to fit in, the further you drift from yourself. That every time you betray your intuition to be accepted, something inside shatters, not silently, but into decisions that don't resonate, bonds that drain instead of nourish. When you grasp this, a new compass activates. You no longer seek love to fill voids, but to share fullness. You no longer beg for attention to feel seen because you've learned to see yourself unfiltered. The loneliness you once feared becomes sacred space where you can finally breathe without pretense. You discover solitude doesn't mean emptiness. It means being with yourself. And in a world that pushes constant distraction, that's an act of bravery. The paradox is clear. The more genuine you are, the more magnetism you project. Authenticity vibrates in a way that can't be faked. People feel it, even if they don't understand it. That's when you stop being an option for many, but become unmistakable to those on your frequency. You no longer beg for affection. You offer presence. You no longer chase acceptance. You emanate truth. And then the dynamic reverses. You're no longer the one fearing rejection. You're the one choosing whom to open your heart to. Not from ego, but self-respect. You've learned not everyone deserves access to your essence, that your energy isn't bargaining currency, that your time is a gift, not an obligation. Rejecting what doesn't resonate becomes self-love. Accepting that not everyone will understand becomes liberation, because those who can't withstand your authenticity can't withstand your expansion. You weren't born to shrink for others' comfort. You came to occupy your space with dignity, even if it unsettles. So next time someone rejects you, thank them silently. They've just saved you time, energy, and detours, because deep down, every well-received rejection is a sacred affirmation you're returning to yourself. Then the unexpected happens. You realize you need no external affirmation to validate your worth. For the first time, you've felt it from within, a certainty that can't be bought, taught, or imitated. It can only be conquered. You notice it when you stop reacting to rejection with drama and instead respond with silence and posture, not because you don't care, but because it no longer defines you. Rejection stops being a wound and becomes a filter, a mechanism eliminating what doesn't honor your authenticity. At this point, it's not about arrogance or superiority, it's discernment. You learn to distinguish between those who want you for what you project and those who value you for who you are, unadorned. You become selective, not out of pride, but awareness. You're no longer willing to lower your frequency just to please. The price of self-betrayal has already been paid, and you refuse to repeat the debt. Curiously, from this inner solidity, you start attracting different connections, people who don't ask you to explain your light or hide your shadow, people who don't seek to mold you, but to walk with you. Then everything changes. Relationships stop being battlegrounds for validation and become spaces of expansion. You don't need to be perfect, just present. You don't need to always be available, just real when you show up. True power doesn't shout, push, or beg. Real power is quiet. It doesn't seek to impress. And that peace, so scarce in a hyperstimulated world, becomes your calling card. While others strive to be seen, you allow yourself to simply be, without masks, strategies, or need to convince. Here's where the true revolution occurs. When you stop chasing acceptance and start choosing yourself daily, something within aligns. Fear of rejection fades because you've understood that those who reject you simply aren't ready for what you embody. And that's okay. Not everyone must stay, only those who recognize your truth. So keep walking firmly. You don't need to explain yourself. Your coherence speaks for you. And that's the most attractive thing of all, the most powerful irony of this journey. When you stop begging for acceptance, you earn the most respect. The world responds to those who don't need it, those who walk without asking permission, lowering their heads, or negotiating their essence. not out of impulsive rebellion, but from choosing self-honor. That's the deepest attraction. Belonging not to those who play at fitting in, but to those who live by expanding their truth without apology. And when that happens, there's no return. You can't go back to who you were. You can't pretend you haven't seen what you've seen or unlearn the clarity now within you. Acceptance is no longer a trophy to pursue. It's an inevitable consequence of living from your core. Loneliness stops hurting because it now has purpose. Rejection no longer pains because it no longer defines you. Silence becomes comfortable because it no longer signifies absence. It represents power. Now I ask you directly, how many more times will you trade your authenticity for crumbs of attention? How much longer will you live on pause, waiting for someone out there to say you're enough? Life doesn't wait. And the most brutal truth? It only truly begins when you stop postponing yourself. You weren't born to be a well-accepted copy. You came to be an unforgettable presence. So look at yourself honestly. If you've made it this far, if something within you vibrated with every word, if this message felt more like a revelation than a reflection, then you know what to do. Not for others, but for yourself. Share this message with those who also need to awaken. Leave in the comments the phrase, "I choose myself without permission," if you're ready to stop waiting for approval and start walking with purpose. Because this isn't the end, it's the start of a life without masks. Subscribe if you want to keep exploring truths no one dares to say but everyone needs to hear. See you in the next video. And remember, you weren't created to be understood by all. You were created to be you, with all your light, all your shadow, all your truth.